Hi guys, a little earlier today. I see that there's quite a few of you waiting, so I just started a little earlier. We've got 25 people already, even before 9 o'clock. I see there's loads of you here. John Meyer, hi John. Hi Graham Hobbs, World Community. So the Fed will be the buyer of last resort. Hi Gary D. So the title of the live stream is IMF cuts the forecast for world growth, but they only cut it by 0.1%, a tenth of a percent, which I think is ridiculous. I would be a buyer of 1%, so let alone 0.1. I think they're underestimating, and I'm going to talk about what's going on in China. I'm just going to say the C word. I'm not going to use the whole word, of course, but I think we all know by now what I mean when I say what's going on in China. And the thing about the world in the last 30, 40 years is that the world's gotten smaller because of globalization. And I think a lot of people are a little bit complacent about the effects of what's going on in China. And we're now seeing what's happening in Italy. I'm sure some of you have seen. So I'll just go through the headline here. Italy quarantines northern towns in outbreak. I won't say what it is, of course. Wall Street Journal, C spreads outside China as worries mount. Italy grapples with worst outbreak outside China. South Korea epicenter is a virtual ghost town. So yeah, I still think there's a lot of complacency. So am I saying people need to panic? No, but I think, there's a good interview with Greg Hunter, Chris Martenson from Peak Prosperity. I recommend people watch that. He's really been covering this quite well since February. So we got quite a few people here. Isabella, as usual. Hi, Isabella. Grow Mechanic, I guess I don't get informed anymore. I've missed a lot. Hi, Alan. Hi, Aaron. Nice to see you. Yeah, Billy's here today. No from Colorado. Les Paul will continue going up this week. I think so. The futures, the futures on COMEX, the index futures open in about 2 hours. But for example, IG index, they have a weekend trading. And right now I've got the Dow down 173 points. So it looks like we're going to open lower in the stock market. Vincentas Grazevičius from Lithuania. Hi, Vincentas. Eddie Darmody. Hi, Eddie. County Durham. Catman 734. Yeah, Daniel P. Yeah, gold is all-time highs in most major currencies except the dollar, the Swiss franc, and the Chinese yuan. It's basically because people are realizing the central banks have no way out. They've been bailing out the system since 2009. The Federal Reserve tried to reverse that with rate hikes and quantitative tightening, and they had to reverse it last year. And there's, if they stop printing and creating credit out of thin air, the whole system implodes, but the whole system will implode no matter what. And that's what gold smells, in my opinion. No, we're all gonna die. Yeah, we're all gonna die one day. That's right. Mr. Fatface, yeah, I've made the first video I made about the what's going on in China was on, I think, January 30th. It wasn't demonetized right away because they were still not doing it. So it's if so-and-so is a black swan, central bankers will be helpless. I recommend you go on my channel and through all the latest videos. I've done a couple of good videos, in my opinion, last week about how it's going to affect the global supply chain, and it's already doing so. Even the Wall Street Journal now, they're a few days behind our channel here. They're saying world economy shudders as so-and-so threatens global supply chains. So people are starting to realize that. So travel, I made a video about travel and tourism. I saw that Venice already canceled their carnival because of what's happening in Italy. I think there was supposed to have been a Congress, Mobile Technology Congress in Barcelona this month. They canceled that. Usually they get over 100,000 people there. I think travel is going to be really curtailed in the world we live in, where it's a small world. It's going to be big, the impact, in my opinion. One thing I wanted to say, though, about if this crisis becomes big, I think it could be similar to this. This is Lindsay Williams about the oil crisis in the 70s, the energy non-crisis. And am I saying there's no crisis? No, but I think the powers that be are going to use it to their advantage. Like Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste. So I think there could be a lot of things that they could impose on the public. Jim Willie, someone's talking about Jim Willie here. What YouTube rules are you breaking when you mention the C word? I've seen a few other channels to have videos. Well, actually, I had my latest video on the beer disease. I got the yellow icon, which isn't demonetized, and I actually made a little bit on it, but not as much as I would have normally. I'm not sure why they're censoring people who talk about this. I guess you need to be a big media company to be able to talk about it and monetize your channel. Any update on HSBC, Deutsche Bank? No, I think the banks are going to keep getting bailed out. They can't let, it's not just HSBC and Deutsche Bank that are in trouble. They're all in trouble, all these banks. One of them goes, the whole thing goes. But Goldman 10% correction call. Well, it's as good as I guess it makes sense. I mean, the video I made yesterday, I spoke about the Fed's balance sheet, how it's risen since September, and now it's topping and almost going down. And I think unless they increase it again, start more QE, we could see the stock market go lower. Yeah, the repo is it's ongoing, the overnight repos and the term repos. Eddie picked up a couple of sovereigns. Yeah, I've had a few people ask me about gold, people who usually wouldn't. And yeah, so I think people are looking a little more into it. Crash. Are we going to have a crash? I think we have a correction, but will it be a major crash? It could be. I think in 2018, The stock market dropped 20%, and then they came out and rescued it. We could see that again. Right now, the futures isn't open yet, but IG index, the weekend trading has the Dow down 170 points. We'll have to wait and see later on. Hi, Lord Humongous. Nice to see you here. How can we tell when they print more money? Well, just look at their balance sheet. Look at whether they're doing QE. When rates are negative or very low by the central banks, the target rates, that means that it's easier for the banks to issue credit. That's how they're printing money. So you can, for example, if you want to look at the Fed's balance sheet, go into St. Louis Fed balance sheet on Google that, and you find the balance sheet. If that balance sheet is going up, that means they're printing money. Paul Flamand, the thing in China is just an excuse. I think so. I think it's a little bit of this, but even though it is happening, I've heard people talk about that it will be easier to bring a cashless society, because they'll say you can't use cash because you can transmit stuff with the paper money. That could be one thing, and many other things. It could be a way to pare back globalization, because a lot of companies in the West will have to find suppliers closer to home, not be so dependent on China. There's a lot of things that could come out of this. But from what I'm seeing, the headlines, I have a bad feeling about this. I think it's going to get worse. I think in a month's time, if it keeps going as it is, there won't be too much travel, even in Europe, I would say. People are going to try not to travel that much. Billy just jumped off. Ark Omen says it came from a lab. Yeah, I mean, we could discuss for days the origin, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is what's happening in the real world right now. And I think it's concerning. You're seeing South Korea, Italy now in Europe. So I think things could get worse. Yeah, Isabella, the disadvantages of globalism for everyone to see. Les Paul, I wouldn't worry about VAT on silver. I bought silver the first time in 2003, and I was concerned about the VAT, but even now that silver isn't really very high, the VAT that I paid in 2003 is insignificant, so I wouldn't worry about it. Some people say there are ways to get silver without the VAT. Some German companies, you can try that. Paul Flamen, thank you for the super chat donation. Cool. Yeah, Billy just went on the floor. Doesn't want to be on the sofa. So in this book, I don't know if any of you know The Energy Non-Crisis, Lindsay William talks about how the oil embargo by the Arab nations, a lot of people think that was the reason why oil went up, and it was partly because of that. But Lindsay Williams, while that crisis was going on, he went to, he was in a ranch in the west of the US where there's a pipeline going through it. And the guy who ran the ranch leased the owner of the ranch leased the land for the pipelines. and apparently the oil wasn't flowing from the West Coast to the East. And Lindsey Williams said, why isn't the oil flowing? We've got the crisis, the oil embargo. And he said, well, we were told by the people in Washington, the government, to stop the oil flowing. So I think the oil crisis, of course, was a crisis to bring about the petrodollar. And why do I say that? Well, because it gave the Saudis an incentive. By raising the price of oil, they made a lot of money, and they, the payback for the Americans was that they instituted the petrodollar. So I think this present crisis emanating from China could be similar to the oil crisis. Not that it's going to be an oil crisis, of course, but there could be big developments out of this crisis. And that's why I think people need to hold on to gold and silver, because I think things are going to get quite interesting. Did we have some trolls here? Yeah, looks like it. Check Sky News. I don't watch Sky News. Maybe sometimes I watch some clips on YouTube about Sky News, but I don't really watch the news that much anymore. Jack Yeoman, I think precious metals mining stocks will do well as long as the precious metals keep going up. So it doesn't matter if we get a crash in the rest of the stock market. I think mining stocks will still do well. They're, of course, not the same as gold and silver. They're more leveraged. Vajra, do you think they will close the markets? I've spoken about this, that it is possible, very possible that they could. So that's one thing you need to keep in mind. Things are not that bad yet, or they might not get that bad. We don't know. But I think a few weeks ago, the head of the World Health Organization said people should keep traveling, and now that's not happening. I went onto my app on my phone, my British Airways app, to try to find a flight to China. Not that I want to go there, but there's nothing. It doesn't come up. So British Airways has canceled all the flights to China. Mustafa, the mining stocks don't move together with the precious metals. I think in 1980, gold topped in January 1980, and so did silver. And the mining stocks actually kept going up for another 2 years. So they don't go up together all the time. Paul Flyman, gold royalty is just when you buy a mining company that actually they don't do any of the mining operation, but they have ownership in mines that produce gold, so they get a royalty, so to speak. So that's a royalty company. They're not involved in the mining itself, but they have a flow of gold. Colonel Crypto, Mario trying not to laugh. About what, Colonel Crypto? Oh, Billy, you mean? He's just on the floor. He's just jumped off the sofa. Royal Mint Gold ETC. Is that some kind of exchange traded coin, or I don't know what that is. The Royal Mint, I think they have a service where you can leave the coin with them. the gold with them. I wouldn't trust the Royal Mint. Is a government owned entity, even though they do mint the sovereigns. Will silver hit 26 this year? It's very possible that it could, especially if it breaks 21. I know we're still 18 handle, but I think it's going to be difficult for them to keep it down. Aliana ready for RB wishes sovereigns were more yellow. Yeah, the reason they're a bit some people think they're copper coins because it's a bullion coin. Bullion coins they circulate, or they can circulate, and it's not 100% or 999 gold. Because if it was 99 gold, it would be very it would get damaged really easily. So sovereigns are 22 karat gold. So the rest of the metal in the sovereign is copper. The Watcher, hi, The Watcher, how are you? Favorite silver bullion? I don't really have a favorite. I do like the old, they call them junk silver. It's the 1964 and before. I like the $50. I like the quarters, but I've got all kinds of bars and coins. Yeah, I like silver coins. They're nice. Yeah, Graham Hobbs says you can walk with sovereigns through security or customs. Sometimes I travel, I do take one or two, and I put it in my pocket with all my other coins. And when I go through security, I put it in the box, and they don't even know. So there you go. And they're small. The Krugerrand is more conspicuous. It's quite big, and it's an ounce, while the sovereign is just less than a quarter of an ounce. Yeah, constitutional silver. Yeah, I like those silver coins. I also have the UK pre-1920. They're actually 925 silver or sterling. I've got here a half crown. It's a really nice coin. And I've got one, I've got a 1963 $50 with the Liberty Bell and Benjamin Franklin on the back. The 1964 $50, of course, has JFK. And I've got a quarter here from 1902. This is an interesting one. That's a nice, it's quite an old one. Yeah, I've got kangaroos as well. And I do have the Mexican Libertads. I've got maple leaves. Mash the like button. Yeah, that's a good idea. Graham Hobbs says he won't touch eagles. Well, everybody has their own preference. There's not much difference between the 3 9s and the 4 9s, really. They're basically all gold. The reason they can't really say 100% because it's always difficult to say that it's 100%. So they say 999. I've got my time to shut down the old lady, retire the old lady of Threadneedle Street, Bank of England, shut down the bank's doors, have a sip of water. So let's have a look where the Dow is still down 170 in the weekend. So yeah, Italy is actually quarantined some towns in the north of Italy. The other thing I was reading is that the bond market, like there's a lot of bonds that are just above junk. I think there's 3 trillion or 3.5 trillion. Before the crisis of 08, there's only about 600 billion or 500 billion. And Kraft, Heinz, they've just been downgraded to junk. I think that's quite significant. So that's another thing to keep an eye on. Let's have a look here. RB read Gold Wars, Ferdinand Lips. Yeah, it's a good book. Ferdinand Lips unfortunately died years ago. He actually worked for the Rothschilds in Zurich, Ferdinand Lips. He was a Swiss banker. Graham Hobbs says Greg Manarino has pulled his money out of equities. Or SAC Media says that. Will the IMF assume a bigger role? I think they got a pretty big role already. Let's hope they don't assume a bigger one. Yeah. I mean, they came out and said they only expect the world economy to slow down by 0.1. I told my wife about that, and I said I would buy 0.1, and she said, yeah, I would buy 1%. Thank you, John Meyer, for the super chat donation. Yeah, they could, I guess, if they could, if this crisis that we're seeing now is a big crisis, and they could bring about a world currency. The IMF would be quite important, but I think the BIS is really important as well, even though they're very low key. I think the BIS is very important. I think the IMF is basically the foreign arm. That's what I've been told. It's the foreign arm of the US Treasury. The US Treasury has basically enough votes to veto anything at the IMF. So that's how I see the IMF. Yeah, I mean, the metals look really good. I think they're really breaking out, gold and silver, but I don't want to be too optimistic. I've been following this market since 2002, and you never know, but it's looking good right now. There isn't much resistance anymore in gold up until around 1800 at the moment. David Phillips, what will happen to property prices in the UK with this crisis? I think it could be potentially a trigger for lower prices, because like in Canada, I think Vancouver, there's a lot of people from China who go there to invest. San Francisco as well, and in London as well. There's a lot of Chinese expats who come here to invest their money. So if they're not coming over, it could potentially be a trigger for lower prices, even though I was watching Chris Martenson on Greg Hunter. I recommend that interview. Chris Martenson from Peak Prosperity. He's been covering what's happening in China every day. He's got hundreds of thousands of views for some videos. He says the central banks are just gonna, if this gets worse, the stuff that's coming over from China, we're seeing Italy now, things get worse. The central banks could go crazy in terms of printing. So yeah, the house prices might not go down, but the currency is going. And I think that's what gold is telling us, that they're going to print, the central bankers. Pablo, here in Canada, there are talks of propane shortage for Eastern Province, which heats a lot of the country. Yeah. Isabella, now as the contract of Versailles expired and Germany does not exist as a sovereign state, a possibility of Defender 2020 is a cleanup in Germany and Europe is highly likely. End of Euro. I haven't looked into that. Fact that Germany does not exist as a sovereign state anymore. And yeah. Berkey water filter. Just as Americans' economy is dying in China. Well, I think it's going to have an impact worldwide. It's not just China. China is really important to everywhere around the world, and so is South Korea. They manufacture a lot of parts for companies all around the world. So it's not just China. Andy says Vatican has a lot of gold. Well, it's funny you should say that because there's a letter from, I think, the Vatican Bank in 1977 to Paul Volcker, who was at the time was the president of the New York Fed. And the Vatican kept at the time a lot of gold with the New York Fed. And the New York Fed used that gold to lease it out into the markets to sell it. So they probably do have a lot of gold. They probably keep it at the Bank of England, probably in Italy, or at the Vatican, and in New York, I would say. Yeah, they will go QE mad SW. I think, yeah, they've got no choice. Well, they do have a choice, but in terms of central bankers, yeah, that's the only thing they know how to do. Kyle Kramer, gold and US dollar should be working opposite against each other, but both are rising. Yeah, of course, because the dollar is a fiat currency. So since the low in the dollar index in 2008 at 70, the dollar index is up 41%, gold is up 55. So maybe in the short term, you do see the dollar and the gold price trade inversely, but in the last 11 years, it hasn't happened. And a lot of people, I think, are missing the boat because they think a strong dollar is going to hurt gold, but it hasn't. And we saw on Friday, we saw the dollar drop like 0.5%, the dollar index, and you saw what gold did, right? Colonel Crypto, I haven't really looked at natural gas lately, so I couldn't tell you. Sorry about that. It's a very funny market, natural gas. It's like it's a weird market. Roy James, do you think we are in the black swan? Yeah, I mean, I do actually. The more and more we hear what's going on, I made a video on January 30th. It said if the beer disease is a black swan, central bankers will be helpless. And that's why they're going to print, because they're going to be helpless, because I think we could have problems in the economies and the markets. So I think it is. No one saw this coming. And that's what a black swan is. It's not Deutsche Bank going under, because people have been looking at Deutsche Bank for 4 years, but they haven't been looking at what's happening in China. This is out of the blue, this beer disease. So I do think it is a black swan. RB, will the chaps at Gold Investments give a bigger discount than your the 0.5% if asked? You can ask them. It doesn't, nothing's set in stone, especially if it's a big amount that you're looking to do. I can't guarantee it though. Yeah, Isabella, there's still there's still British troops in Germany and US troops. It's an occupied country still. Many people don't realize that. Marek Kalenda, made in China products double prices. Not only made in China products, but products made in the US or made in the UK or in the EU, products that need parts from China. So it's much more than just China, made in China. When do you think the market will go where, up or down? I mean, I think this week is going to be very volatile, and by that I mean we could see a sharp drop come tomorrow morning, but then again you could see some comments by central bankers help the market. I think actually the Fed, especially if the 10-year yield, which is around 146, and I think we could drop through 134. We could see the Fed cut rates before their meeting, which is March 20th. We could have an emergency meeting of the Fed. They could cut rates. Right now, the way they're talking is that nothing's happening, but I think people are very complacent about what we're seeing out of the Far East. Do you think the Trump administration and Mnuchin will be able to keep the bubble inflated till the election? I think it's getting harder and harder, only because of what we're seeing in China, and it's spreading to South Korea, even Italy. They might not be able to do that. Doesn't mean it has a worse chance of winning. So yes, Church, Ave, Dan, it is in Italy. There's a lot of headlines this Sunday. Italy quarantines northern towns in outbreak. That's from the FT. Number of cases tops 150 in Europe. Biggest cluster as fears grow over pace. It is spreading at. So yeah. And if it's in Italy, I think we can be sure that it will probably spread to other countries in Europe. Yeah, Britain as well. Well, there's, I think about 2 weeks ago, the UK government triggered this law where they can isolate people, so put you in quarantine. So they are prepared. You can't, Vesper, how do you prepare against this? Well, I think the most important thing is that you're healthy. That's not guaranteed. I'm not a specialist or an expert or a doctor. Did you see the book The Eyes of Darkness by Dean Koontz? No, I haven't looked at that one. One thing I was looking at, the Economist cover for 2019 had a little picture of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And we all know, yeah, I've got colloidal silver. I've been spraying colloidal silver, my face, my hands, twice a day, colloidal silver. Yeah. So the Economist magazine, if you Google 2019 Economist cover, there's a little sketch of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. One of them is death, which sometimes is equated to pestilence. So, and I know we're in 2020, but in China, it looks like it started in December or maybe even earlier, in November of 2019. So Just a little fact there. Get the book, The Eyes of Darkness. Let me type it so I don't forget. Okay, thanks. So when I finish here, I'll have a look. John Meyer says B12 vitamins as well. Yeah, I don't know if any of you know, I was invited to speak at an investment conference in Holland in March, and I'm going to be talking about the bond market. It's on March 20th. Hopefully, I'll be going. I bought the ticket already to fly over there. I've prepared most of the presentation, so I'm looking forward to that. Any of you guys who are in Holland or Belgium could look that up. I think it's macrotrends.be. They're the people who are organizing the conference. Let me type it, macro trends. I think they've got, they're expecting over 300 people. So I haven't been, the only time I was in Holland was at the airport on a connection flight, Schiphol in Amsterdam. So it'll be my first time really to visit that country. Bas van den Berg, he's Dutch. Looking forward to see you. Yeah, it's in Breda. I think it's near Antwerp, north of Antwerp. Thank you, John Meyer, Holland. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Whiskey and honey. All right. Jack Daniels. John Meyer says Breda is 100 kilometers from where he lives. Yeah, and I think there's going to be someone else talking about gold. And he'd been already picked before the guy asked me to go. So he wants me to talk about the bond market. So that's what I'm going to do. Could China trying to reduce its population? That's something that's, don't know if what I, that's speculation. Who knows? What brand of colloidal silver is better? I Googled, I went on Amazon and I got one called Silver Cleanse, but I think they're all pretty good. I'm not sure. Yeah, there's no brand like Isabella said. They're all the same. It's silver. It's like mineral water, right? They all taste the same. It's all the same. Yeah, and you can make it on your own as well. Be your own bank. Yeah, that's right. Be your own central bank, especially now. The thing about having cash in the bank is that legally it's not yours. It's an unsecured loan. Arc Omen, coronavirus only attack Asian people? No. Ask the Italians who got the coronavirus. I think it attacks all kinds of people. Poonam Shorwat, I haven't seen your questions. There's quite a few comments going through. Sometimes, what's your question? I'm sorry, I'm not ignoring your question. I just didn't see them. There's 300 of you here today, which is quite a bit. So I'm sorry I didn't see your question. Ask the question again because it's scrolling through. So I can't, I don't know what question you asked. Cash at home, John Abear. It's fine, but make sure you keep it safe. Safe place. Same thing with gold if you keep it at home. Ed Heflin, it's possible we're seeing a reset this year, even though I think a reset is a correction, and we've been seeing it for years. If you look at the Dow Gold ratio in 2000, was it 45? We're now at 18. So that's an ongoing reset, but we could see an acceleration. But the crisis that's evolving around what's going on in China and South Korea could be an excuse to, as Ram Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste. They could use that as an excuse. Poonam, it's fine, dear sir. Well, I'm listening. You can ask your question again. The other thing about what's this disease, it's that it's older people are more at risk, of course. John Meyer, twos, tens inversion this week. Yeah, I think the twos, tens are still, I think it's 135, the 2-year, the 10 years, 146. We could see that invert. Definitely. Alan Ewart, do you think we'll see bank runs in the UK? No, I don't actually. They're not going to let it happen again. They'll close them, or have you noticed like a lot of branches are now closed? So they'll just print the money. They won't let it happen again. And that's why you need to have precious metals, because by not allowing bank runs to occur, that means they're printing and printing, and the money becomes worthless and more worthless, the fiat currency. William Birkenroad, waiting for inversion of twos, tens. I think we're already seeing a flight to gold. I mean, gold, over a week ago, just made new highs in euro at 1440. Now we're over 1500. So it's only a matter of time until it makes a new high in dollars as well. And in pounds, it closed at the highest weekly level ever. I think it was 1268. That's the highest weekly closing. Ed Heflin, how can you trade your physical silver to use cash to get back into the system, or just sell it back to the dealer to get the fiat? That's all you do. Or some people might accept the silver in exchange for their asset that they're selling to you. British couple who were on Diamond Princess cruise ship. Any update about them? Sorry, I haven't followed that. I've heard about the ship, but I haven't followed anything about the British couple. Les Paul, I find dealers aren't generals when it comes to selling silver back to them. You can always try to sell it privately. If you know people who want to buy it, you can sell it to them. You can even give them a pretty good deal. They can buy at spot, which is pretty good, and you can sell at spot. So that's the other way if you have friends who are interested. In Holland, you should tiptoe through the tulips and you all stop worrying about things. It's going to be okay. Well, I think things are going to be okay. Humanity always keeps going, but doesn't mean that we couldn't have disturbance and things change from the way they are right now. Les Paul says my friends prefer debt. Bas van den Berg, I don't think you need to be a member of Macro Trends. I think no, I think it's open to anyone. I think they charge some. I don't know how much they will charge. I'm not paying to go there, of course, but yeah, contact them and ask. Quantum computing, crack crypto encryption. Yeah, that's a question people ask quite a bit. I don't think it would take a long time for them to crack the crypto encryption, and by the time they do it, the people who code the cryptocurrencies, they could become more how can I say, aware of this. They could like fight it. So it's a possibility, but I don't think we're close to it. Do you listen to Wall Street for Main Street? I have listened to them in the past, but I haven't listened to them recently. Jason Burak, yeah. At Heflin, are you a Christian? Well, I don't really talk about religion in my channel, and I think that's up to whatever I am. It's for me. I don't want to publicize what. It doesn't really matter. But I will say I was born in Brazil, so that might give you a hint. And I'm of Italian descent. Yeah, Raleigh 777. I've been listening to Chris Martenson for about a month now. He is really doing a great job. He did a really good interview with Greg Hunter this weekend. All right, so 53 minutes. That's quite. I'll take a few more questions, and then we'll call it a day or night or morning, wherever you are. When do you finally go golfing? Well, I played golf this morning. It wasn't very nice, very windy. I'm playing on Thursday again. I'm playing down in the coast in Deal, a links course. That should be good. Yeah, I did watch Boys from Brazil, and that's a great movie. I think I read the book as well. Can you give us your view on TSLA? Huge rise. Oh, Tesla, you mean, right? Yeah, it looks parabolic, the stock price. But I heard a lot of people lost a lot of money shorting it. So I don't know. Some people think I don't know what's going on there. Tesla itself, the company, I think it's not. I think it's a disservice to Nikola Tesla, because Tesla actually said we could have like free energy, like you could harness energy from the ionosphere. I think he even did experiments for that. And the Tesla that we have now, the cars, we had to pay for the electricity. So the concept, I don't think, is really. I think Nikola Tesla would be rolling in his grave. So, but the stock price, yeah, looks overvalued. But would I short it? No. Milkshake. Oh, the milkshake theory. Yeah, I mean, that's a distraction. You need to be, in my opinion, gold and silver. Yeah, the dollar might go up versus the euro and the pound and the yen, but gold will go up much faster, and it's proving that. Gold is going up against the dollar, so the dollar is not the top currency. It's the top fiat currency. And I think Brent Johnson admits that as well. What do you think will happen to the bond market? I think they're going to keep inflating it. And by that, I mean the prices are going to keep going up. The yields are going to keep going down. But one day it will all explode, or the bubble will burst, and the currencies are going to be all worthless. It's going to be like the sovereign debt crisis in Europe in 2012, but it will be worldwide, and they won't be able to save it. But I think they're going to keep it going. Secondhand silver, Robert McIntyre, VAT. I think what you mean is like pre-1920 UK coins, or also American coins like that, like circulating coins. No, there is no VAT. And you can find that they call them junk silver. You can find them on eBay, or I know a coin dealer in Bromley. I don't know if you're near Bromley. He does coins like that, and there's no VAT. There is VAT on bullion silver. Conference in London. No, I'm not looking to do a conference. I'm going to go to a conference in Holland that I was invited to talk there, but I'm not planning on having my own conference. Thank you, John. You're welcome. I'll see you guys later. See you later. Gary D, thank you for the super chat donation. Canadian dollar. All right. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a good end to the weekend. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Yeah, Graham Hobbs says, yeah, my conference is here every Sunday at 9 p.m. London. Yeah, that's the shop at Bromley North Station. Peter Morris. Do you know him? I've known him for years. Peter Morris. He's a good guy. All right. Take care, everyone. I'll talk to you later. Bye.